read the report. Lots of opportunities were missed to clamp down on Wayne Couzens' appalling criminal behaviour, ultimately leading to Sarah Everard losing her life. Why are police forces not picking up on individuals like Wayne Couzens?
Well, there is a dilemma in policing, and it affects us all. And there has to be a decision made, and the sooner the better. What do we want our police to be? Do we want it to be what it is in many regards now, which is a social service, a social breakdown service? It's the equivalent of the AA and the RAC. When your car breaks down, you call one of those organisations. When society breaks down, you call the police. Or do we want a robust, professional, crime-fighting body that makes the streets a hostile environment for criminals and investigates crime?
It's quite an important point, and there is a wider debate about policing that we can get onto. But the real story is here that you had a police officer who'd served in 3 forces, who was a serial sex offender, which wasn't picked up by the police, that enabled him to join the most senior police service, allegedly in the UK, the Met, protecting buildings like the American Embassy and Parliament, and use his warrant cart to abduct and murder a young woman who was walking home on her way from a friend's house. Why wasn't that picked up? What systems are not in place that allow people like Wayne Couzens, I admit a rarity, I'm sure 99.9% recurring of police officers are good, decent individuals. Why can they not identify bad apples like Wayne Couzens?
Sarah Everard would be alive if, referring to my previous comment, the Metropolitan Police was a capable, proactive, crime-fighting police force. Couzens indecently exposed himself at a McDonald's just days before he murdered Sarah. If the Metropolitan Police had properly, promptly, professionally investigated that crime, Couzens would have been arrested. It was the type of crime that I would take a probationer on day one to go and investigate. And with the modern elements to it now, so first of all, a witness statement, CCTV, registration plate evidence, and credit card evidence, he could have been nicked that night or the following morning.
And the tragedy is pointed out in the report which was brought before Parliament, done by Lady Angiolini, that if that had happened, Sarah Everard would still be alive. I want to bring in Ava here. Ava, as a young person, a young woman in London, when you hear cases like the appalling case of Sarah Everard and then hear this report about how the police have failed to root out a bad apple within their own ranks, do you feel safe walking around the streets of London?
Well, there isn't any reprieve offered in that report that was published yesterday. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any chain of command of who's going to be held responsible for hiring him, for letting him stay in the force. There doesn't seem to be any path to move on to the next couple of years. I mean, look, you know, if you are a young woman at the moment walking around in, London, I don't really find the streets that frightening. What I find frightening is that someone who is actually there to protect you, who could be possibly holding a gun, as he was doing outside Parliament for quite some time, could actually have malicious intent.
I completely agree. When Ava says, where is the accountability? Who's going to take responsibility for this? Who is going to be sanctioned? It simply doesn't happen. All that happens is that cohort of senior police officers, who ultimately the responsibility lies with, all they do is carry on climbing that greasy pole of promotion, getting their huge gilt-edged pensions at the end of it all, probably a visit to a castle or a palace to get a huge gong pinned on their chest, and it is utterly unacceptable. They never accept responsibility and they are never held accountable.
Matthew, what we heard from the Home Secretary when he appeared before Parliament, when he made a statement about this, is, of course, there has been quite a lot of action taken. Police officers can now be suspended much more quickly. Do you have confidence that this report, as concerning as it will lead to real change?
No, Lady Angiolini, and I'm reading this right here, the lawyer who's leading this 3-stage inquiry, she believes there could be more victims. We're not learning our lessons. Without a significant overhaul, she says, there is nothing to stop another Couzens operating in plain sight. That is absolutely disgraceful. We need women of all ages to feel safe on our streets. And if the people who are supposed to be keeping them safe are actually at risk of becoming offenders themselves because they haven't been properly vetted. That's an absolute outrage.
Question is, who polices the police force? According to Lady Angiolini, apparently it's no one. Peter, while I've got you here, let me ask you about another thing that the government's come forward with to say that people who are trans, so trans woman or trans man, if they commit a crime, that crime should be reported and recorded against their sex at birth. Do you think that's the right thing for the government to do?
Yes, absolutely. Because before I comment further, I would just like to say Jorge Carino, who was murdered by Scarlett Blake, who had his life snuffed out unnecessarily and wickedly, may he rest in peace. It stems from Scarlett Blake. Born a man, decides to identify as a woman, murders someone and kills a cat. Gets recorded as a crime by a female. What a slur to Ava and every other female in the land, because it skews the reporting of crime statistics.
No, I don't think anyone would disagree with the point you've taken in relation to that case. This is all crimes. You can't just say serious crimes. If someone gets stopped for speeding, or someone gets, a drunken, disorderly child, very low-level offences, why should their gender at birth be relevant in terms of the recording of that crime? If you get stopped for speeding, why should your gender at birth be relevant to that crime?
For the accurate analysis of who is committing crime. And, of course, the police foolishly don't have on many of their records the ability to record somebody's gender at birth. They need to rectify that. It's only tinkering with a bit of IT when all's said and done. It can be easily completed. We need accurate stats, and we also need to stop slurring the female species of this great nation by attributing crimes to them which they simply have not committed.